flesh onto Scully. Scully's changed a bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. And he talks too. We have a special guest with us today, as he's been here once before, but he's back again. Connor Ward, back again, talking about all kinds of stuff. Julie, what are we talking about today?
Mike's had a couple of donuts. He's a little on the sugar high. He's like a psychopath right now.
So good.
So you guys, so today, we have Tissue Talk here, which we talk all about tissue and every type of soft tissue, right? From inside to outside the body, muscle, tendon, ligament, organs, you name it, we're talking. Injury, pain. One of the things that we're constantly doing here that we want to talk about is what happens when you start to feel better. One of the beauties of tissue is it does have this great healing factor, right? So the biggest thing that we get, one of the biggest questions that we get is, when can I go back to training? Like, when can I go back to training? Hey, so when do I get to go right back to where I was?
I just sprained my ankle. Can I go back next week?
Oh yeah, can I play in the game today? And remember, a couple of issues ago, we were talking about healing times, the acute, subacute, chronic pain. How long does it take tissue to heal? But there's more to it than just healing. So today we brought in Connor, because Connor is one of our sports performance therapists or coaches. He's a therapist in all ways because he heals the tissue from a sports performance side. But he's an exercise physiologist, and he does all of our VO2 max stuff, and that's where his sweet spot is. But he's all about how to progress the body and put load on it. And one of the things that we find is that once we're dealing with rehab and the body starts to activate itself, what happens when we're trying to load it? Because if you go too far over, then you go back into injury again. So we brought Connor in because Connor's going to talk to you a little bit about loading. So what do you got going on for us? Let's say we have a client that comes in, they've been in pain. We're now working with their glutes, we're working with their quads, we're rebalancing them. Everybody always wants to go right back to the exact same weight, speed, pressure, poundage that they did before. Like literally, can I push 600 pounds? Can I lift 140 pounds? Can I go back to squatting? And they want to go back the same weight that they came off. Mm-hmm. Because in here, their brain thinks that they're ready to go. How does that work? Because that usually lands them right back on the table with us again. So I want you to break down and kind of explain that and how it works as far as progression and tissue and how the body works.
So I'd say there's kind of two issues that can lead you to coming in here. You got an acute issue, so something happens, you fall, you land on your ankle, you twist your ankle, or you have a chronic issue. Mm-hmm. So you're doing bench press, you're doing deadlift, and you're doing it incorrectly every single time you do it. You're leading to incorrect firing patterns within your back, within your glutes, within your quads, wherever it may be, and your body gets so used to doing it that one way, but you're doing it in the incorrect way.
Right.
And so as you build upon that incorrect firing pattern, your body is going to compensate with various muscles to then take over the load from the muscle that's supposed to be working. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to eventually result in an injury. Right. Even if you're able to increase the weight, even if you're building more muscle, you're not doing it correctly, and so that's going to lead to that injury. And so eventually it's going to come to a point where you can no longer progress past that certain point, and you say, I have pain.
Right.
And you're going to hit that point, and you're going to come in, and you're going to say, my shoulder hurts, my glute hurts, whatever might hurts. And so you gotta really break it all the way down back to the bottom. And so first starts with those firing patterns. Mm-hmm. First starts with, if you have an injury, realigning all those tissues, getting the inflammation down, getting the fibers all realigned, getting all that stuff.
Bring the balance back.
Bringing the balance back. And then if you have an incorrect firing pattern, you have to recorrect that. So you gotta get the activation correct, the sequence of activation, whether you're starting with a squat, you got to be starting down low and working your way up and pushing your way through the body, correct activation, all those things. And so that's a big part there is getting the correct firing patterns, and then you have to build upon that. But the difficult part is if you're doing things incorrectly for, say, 6 months of lifts, then your body wants to revert back to those firing patterns.
It definitely does. 100%.
My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that once you develop those incorrect firing patterns, when you go back into fatigue, even if you corrected it, your body still remembers that old firing pattern.
Yeah, so it's
and
called,
you can fall back into that easily.
Totally. So it's called a motor learning pattern. Yeah. So as you repeat a task, your body has this memory of
whether it's good or bad.
Whether it's good or bad, it's whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Your body and your brain have a memory of how exactly it's going to send from your brain all the way through your neurons down into the motor neurons within your muscle.
Yep.
And so once you're getting fatigued, your body's like, okay, we're tired. We're going to go to what we're used to. We're going to go to that original pattern that originally caused the injury.
Yeah.
And so what you really need to work on is starting slow and building in a linear progression so that you're building on top of each other. You're not going to resort back to the way you're doing before, and that's what happens when you skip steps.
Yeah.
You're trying to do too much weight, you're trying to do too many reps, you're working out too many days per week,
Right.
and that leads right back into injury if you're not progressing in a systematic and healthy way where you're building on top of things.
So tell me how that would work. So, we've had this conversation, you guys, and we have, about like, how long does it actually take tissue to heal? When you're going from a chronic pain or an acute pain, how long does it take tissue? How long does it take bone? How long does it take organs to truly, truly heal? So let's say now you're feeling good, because remember, when we get into that phase where we start to actually feel better, our brain's like, I feel so much better. Doesn't mean our tissue is there. It doesn't mean that we're healthy to go on. It means we get to start using resistance. But at what point does the body say, all right, we're at a sticking point. Let's go. It's time to really progress. And then how would you take somebody who's starting to do that and then take them to the next level? Like, what would be your first 5 steps of that movement? Would you just put them out there and start loading them? Would you do them in body squat? Like, what would you do?
Well, it's pretty dependent on the person per person, as well as the injury or overuse or whatever it might be, but you're starting at the basics. Say you having issues with your hips and you're having issues with the hinge. You're bending over, touching your toes, back up, making sure to keep your back straight. You're really focusing on those firing patterns, activating your lower back, activating your glutes, and just starting no weight, just getting those firing patterns back. Because you really need to cement that new motor program, or else the moment you're fatigued, you're just going to resort back to the old program.
Right.
And so it's about that progression. It's about starting real small and building on from there, and slowly increasing the weight, the reps, the frequency in which you're exercising, and then kind of just taking it day by day.
So you're looking for somebody's competency to get through each and every movement, right? If they're not competent to hold that movement, it leads right back to the injury.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and not only that, but you as a person, an athlete, a human, anyone who's in injury gets to have patience. And you get to trust the process, because if you overdo it, your body is not ready for what's happening anyway. So you're retraining the brain with retraining the muscles. It's all firing together in the kinetic chain, right? So it's just like Connor said. When he's talking about doing a hip hinge and bending from the hip, majority of us think we're bending from the hip, but it's also proprioception, where we tend to round into our back a lot of the times. And so all we're doing is taking the weight and the stress off of one area and reapplying it to a whole nother area. So then we're setting ourselves up for potentially re-injuring that area or injuring the next area. So what is the state of progression? Like, give them, because we know it already. Give them some cool nuggets of your wisdom as far as what are you going to do, and how long do you need to wait before you start to progress to that next weight? So now we've done body weight, right? And we're like, oh, I'm feeling good. I have no resistance, no pain when I'm pushing off of anything. Let's throw the weights on. So what do? You just start loading weights and then drumming it end to end, or do you like progress slowly? How is there a certain amount of reps that you're supposed to do? Is there a certain amount of sets that you're supposed to be able to accomplish before you can get to that next step?
Well, it's definitely on a person-to-person basis, and there's no, all right, this week we're going to do 5 pounds, next week we're going to do 10 pounds, week after that we're doing 15. Maybe you got to do 5 pounds for 3 weeks until you're no longer feeling pain or unable to walk the next day because you're feeling a bit of pain from that exercise. So a lot of it is listening to your body. With any injury, with any workout, with anything you're doing, you got to listen to your body. So if you're getting pain, if you're feeling extra fatigue, then you're listening to your body.
Yeah.
So the progression is all about how you're feeling. It's about how you're responding. It's about the form you're able to maintain and the technique you're able to maintain in every exercise you're doing. And then it's building upon that every day. So it's, okay, I was able to do this 5 pounds for this last 2 weeks. I feel good. I'm doing it correctly, not only on my first rep, but I'm doing it correctly on my 10th rep.
What does that mean, though, to do it correctly? So So we have to take the distinction out of what they think is doing it correctly versus what does it feel like to do it correctly, correct? Correctly?
Correct.
And do you know what I mean? Like what is that correctly? Because people think that they're doing it correctly, but they might not be doing it correctly. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Correct.
So athletes specifically are very good at compensating for any movements that they're trying to do. And so you can get a movement done.
Oh, get it done.
They task.
Yeah, you get it done, but getting it done correctly, it's about firing the right motor patterns.
Yeah.
It's about flexing the right muscles. It's about maintaining the same technique from the first rep to the last rep.
Okay.
And so when you're getting fatigued, you're not just resorting to the old stuff that you're doing before. And so it's important that you're feeling it the same every single time you're doing it.
Okay.
It might get a little bit more intense. It might feel a little bit more burned, but you're not feeling it in your butt and then suddenly feeling it in your back, or vice versa, whatever it may be.
Well, to do a true squat, should you feel it in your back at all if you're doing it? If you're firing off like the right motor pattern?
No.
Yeah. So you guys, if you're feeling it in your back, then you're not doing it correctly to
You might be
begin
getting
with.
it done.
But you're getting it done. And the other thing too is the one thing we have to think about when we're doing it is loading. There is a specific firing chain, but you aren't expected to know all of the stuff that we're doing and that your body is naturally doing. And an injury will shut things down as well. So it'll just kind of skip over into the next part and compensate for it. So let's say that you have an athlete that's coming to see you. They've hurt their back, let's say, and they're doing a squat. What do you think, what is the firing pattern that they should feel? Because I know also human beings as we are, we tend to push through pain. It's a little pain, it'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
I'll just push through pain. And understanding the distinction between push through pain and we got to stop pain. So most people will go right into that like, it's just a little pain. What point does that become like, that's a bad idea?
Well, there's a difference between pain and discomfort.
Yes.
If you have a little bit of discomfort, then that's okay to push through. But the moment you're feeling those tweaks, those pinches, those whatever feeling you might have, that's when you gotta stop. You gotta let pain be your guide. And discomfort in any injury is going to happen.
Yeah.
Whether you have a broken ankle, whether you have a pulled muscle, whatever it may be, you're gonna have to push through discomfort to get back to where you wanna go, because you have inflammation, you have scar tissue, you have just kind of changed anatomy within that area of the body, and so you're going to have to push through that discomfort. But my biggest thing is just letting pain be your guide in those situations, and really focusing on the cues that you're being provided as an athlete to
100%.
Focus on the correct form, squeezing where you're supposed to squeeze, and just following along the way you're supposed to.
Yeah, pain is actually your ally, not your enemy, you guys. If you can see it as that, it's there to tell you something's not right. It's guiding you. It's definitely not telling you like, just keep going.
Push harder.
Just ignore me.
Put
It's
another
like
25
telling
on there.
you something that is not right. Not right. So give me a breakdown in how you take your athletes through when you get them. Obviously, pain is the guide. Each person everybody is an individual. So we cannot cookie cutter anything. And if you're doing it and taking it off of any kind of like Google, YouTube channel, whatever, and just trying to do what they're doing, you are not them, you guys. And everybody has the different way of doing it. But if you had like a couple of main tips that you are working with your people to get them from the table to the playing field, what do you say is a good progression time? And then what are some of the big tips that you would give your people?
Well, to sound like a broken record, it's kind of a person by person basis. It's an injury by injury basis.
Sure.
It's a how far were you up on the ladder beforehand, and how far did you come back down? Where do you want to get back after the injury? And so it's going to start with isolation. So really focusing on that individual joint. We've been talking about the back, so we'll keep it the back.
Okay.
It's about being able to get down and touch your toes. It's about being able to do the Romanian deadlift. It's about doing the...
You mean you'd have to assess?
You have to assess every time.
It always comes back to assessment, people.
You always gotta know. You always gotta know exactly where your body's at.
You don't know where you are until you find out where you are.
Exactly.
He was so into assessment, he just shrunk like 3 inches just now. He just dropped. Poof. Couldn't even help it.
But that's where you start. You've got to go through that stuff and find out where somebody is in the moment so then they can progress.
Yeah.
Exactly.
from there.
And go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, focusing on that isolation, focusing on that single joint, making sure you can really fire through that one joint before you try to involve multiple joints. Because if you're doing a squat, you got your ankles, you got your knees, you got your hips, you got some shoulders, you're holding the weight up.
It's a lot of real estate.
You got 4 different joints that you're working through, and if you're doing it incorrectly in your hip joints or in your lower back, then as soon as you reach that progression within the lift, you're going to shut down, you're going to compensate with other parts of your body, and the weakest link, the chain's only as strong.
100%. And you'll start looking like a centipede trying to go up into your lift instead of driving all the way through and be structured. That brings me to a good point, is like, what's the difference between structuring and not structuring? Like, what if you are not, you are only as strong as your weakest link, right? And so when you are coming off of an injury, you guys, and you're going to that next level, if you are not structured, then you cannot hold your form. It just is not going to happen. And so a lot of times you'll have athletes who really try to push the boundaries because they're trying to get back to playing. They're trying to keep their position, their spot. They're so afraid of losing gains that they're actually going to lose their gains in a longer form because they are not structured completely, right? So you were telling us before we started about the difference between structuring and not structuring with the blocks and how that actually works.
Yeah. Could you hand me those blocks over there?
Look what I found.
So basically, let's say before an injury, this is your body here. Everything's structured. It's all together. It's straight-ish. And you have strength, you have stability, and then you have an injury. So you got to start back at base 1. You're in the training room, you're getting rid of the inflammation, you're getting your fibers realigned, you're getting the ability to move without pain again, relatively no pain, maybe a little discomfort. Then we start some isolation exercises. We move into the training room, we start doing, again with the back, just touching our toes, just trying to do some rotations, whatever it may be, and then we start doing a little bit of weight. So we have the weight here. And then we start to increase the weight. So that's here. But you start firing your muscle firing patterns are incorrect. You're following down the wrong motor pattern. You're getting fatigued and you're starting to go back to the way you were doing it before when you got the injury.
Yeah.
So then you try and add some more weight. Okay, it's fine right now. It's a little tossy right now.
Still able to maintain.
But you're able to maintain. You're able to get through it. You're able to compensate. You're able to get it done. And then you try it again.
Oh Lord.
And everything starts toppling. Then you have to go back down. You got to get rid of the incorrect firing patterns. You got to really develop those motor program patterns, and then you get rid of that, and you're able to stack your blocks again. You're able to progress, and you're able to get to back to where you want it to be. So it's all about that linear progression. Every block's the same exact size. Every block is equally as important. It doesn't matter if the little block at the bottom is at the very bottom. It doesn't matter if it's second from the top. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle. You need to have a strong link in every part of your chain.
That's right. I hope you guys get that. That is a super great example of how we build. And this is exactly why we see athletes and people and clients who come back repeatedly for the same type of injury, because they never actually focused on just working that one area out. They didn't get that part to where it was completely functional and completely functional and firing correctly and strong, and then go to the next step, and then go to the next step. It's like trying to add all the ingredients into a cake at the same time instead of adding the dry ingredients and then the wet ingredients and then putting it together and baking it. It's like you're just dumping it all in there and just hoping for the best. And it might come out good sometimes. It might come out not so good sometimes. It's like you're really leaving it up to chance. So why leave your body up to chance? There's no point in it. Like, especially if your body is your business, if your body is, it's the one thing that you have that's completely unique to you. So why not pay that much more attention to really focusing on the rehab side of it, and also focusing on creating more and more strength. Now, this also applies not just to strength and conditioning. This also applies to speed and agility, to power, to your performance, because you can't be explosive if you haven't connected all the dots. You can do it for a little while, but there's going to be one part that doesn't actually work. And same with speed, right? If you're going one direction and you need to cut back that way, and you haven't developed those firing patterns, you're not going to be able to do it, or you're not going to be able to do it to the ability that you used to. However, how often do you get somebody where you can actually take them beyond where they left, based on the injury that they had because they weren't really doing it correctly in the first place?
If it's a chronic use injury, then they're in a position where they're doing something incorrectly, whether it may be the way they're planting their foot when they cut, or whether they're trying to build up speed, whatever it might be. If you're able to correct that deficit, correct that issue that they have, then there's nowhere to go but up.
Right.
You're going to improve that speed. You're going to improve that 40 time, that vertical jump, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And it's just about addressing that chink in the chain.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can actually not even just get to where you're supposed to be, but get past where you're supposed to be and elevate just to the absolute next level, to the highest level that you're supposed to be. But what it takes is paying attention to your body. The injury in and of itself is the first stage of the game. It's like, hey, something's not working for us. Go back, find out what's not working. Don't get so caught up in your head that you really just want to get back, because the more that you fire up to get back too fast, it could lead you back down the ladder instead of up the ladder.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense? So we're all just hitting the different rungs. So not only can doing any kind of strength training, doing any kind of functional work, doing any kind of fundamental work help you, it'll actually take you to that whole nother level. I got mumbled all of a sudden.
You did all right.
I know, I'm trying. It's one of those days, it's a Wednesday. So I hope that makes a lot of sense to you. Basically, you can't do one without the other. So you couldn't just come in and start retraining without actually doing the rehab side of it, right?
Well, you're just retraining the incorrect method in which you were training.
Boom. And then you can't just do therapy without the strengthening side. It's got to be a marriage of the two in order to get you to that next level. It's got to be a combo pack. Because if you're only doing one and not focusing on the other, you're missing the game. And if you're only focusing on the strength and conditioning without the therapy, you haven't been able to put anything back together in the first place. So let's get Humpty Dumpty back together and then strengthen Humpty Dumpty. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Any last words that you want to say? Any nuggets of information that you think people really get to hear from you today?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just building upon what you have there and making sure what you have there is a solid foundation. Because without a solid foundation, you're not going to build very tall.
Yeah.
I've got a question. Is there a book out there that people can get at some point?
There is actually a book. There's a book that I will be releasing in about 3.5 weeks, Health, Fitness, and Nutrition 102. And so that'll walk you.
What's it called again?
Health, Fitness, and Nutrition 102.
Okay.
So not 101, because this book is for people who understand a bit of health, understand a bit of fitness, understand a bit of nutrition, but it takes it that step further.
Advanced level.
So it's a little bit more exercise physiology, a little bit of metabolism, a little bit of the biochemical reactions during exercise. It's the linear progression, it's the periodization, it's the pre-exercise nutrition, post-exercise nutrition, it's HIIT training, it's steady state training, it's flexibility training, it's a little bit of everything involved to get your body to that next level that you need.
Hold on a minute. So you're telling us there's more than one type of training out there? There's more than like one type
of training.
So you just don't go right back in and just do one thing?
No.
Because would that one thing even be worth whatever you're doing? What if it doesn't even work for you, yeah?
Well, from my experience and from my knowledge, the best athletes aren't the people who can kick the ball the farthest. They aren't the person who can run the fastest. They're the person who can run faster than 8 other players. They're the person who can kick the ball farther than 9 other players. They're the person who can have a better touch than 8 other players. It's being above average across the entire board.
Right.
So you got to be above average in your nutrition. You got to have your above average flexibility, above average strength. It's not about being the best in everything. It's about being very good in everything.
Yes. Yeah, and the more that you understand your body, that's how you can take yourself to the next level. So people can be your catalyst, but it's up to you to like implement in your own body. So listen, Connor is like a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so happy to have him here. If you guys are more interested in periodization, nutrition, all the VO2 max, all the respiration stuff, HIIT training, flexibility training, and all the other 75 things he just mentioned in his book, let us know, and we'll do another tissue talk based on what you want to know about, because we are all about giving you information that you guys are interested in. So we thank you so much for being here on this lovely Wednesday. We hope that helped and that got you guys a little bit more information at what you needed as far as taking your injury to the next level of eliteness, because you are elite and you get to excel.